The Diego Sanchez situation, not the worst thing in the world, but it's quite a sad tale. It's quite a sad situation. To see such an accomplished and well achieved, established fighter such as Diego Sanchez, who has accomplished a lot in the sport of MMA, mixed martial arts. Always get tongue twisted, especially in an organization such as that of the UFC, of that standing, of that caliber. It's really sad to see. He's one of the I think he's fought and worked in the organization longer than any other mixed martial arts athlete, any other fighter. He's fought in the UFC since April 2005 for approximately 16 to 17 years. In total, he's had about 43 matches. He's won 30 of those, lost 13 of those. He's fought in more fights, fought in more fight of the year bouts than any other mixed martial arts fighter in the UFC. He's fought in multiple weight classes, and I say credit to him for doing that, because making weight, especially for, in a sport such as MMA, it's not easy. Having to train, having to cut certain, cut calories, calorie count, add more calories, and do all of that, and still train and make sure that you're perfecting your craft all the time, doing your jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, grappling, all those things, striking, all those things as well. And that does take its toll on you mentally as well. So, credit to him for doing that. That's a big achievement. So he's fought in multiple weight classes within the UFC: middleweight, welterweight, lightweight, featherweight, and he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And a majority of his mixed martial arts career, he's fought out of the Jackson Wink mixed martial arts academy. And before joining the UFC, he already kind of made a name for himself when he fought in the King of the Cage fighting organization that's based in Southern California. So the question is, why was he released from the UFC? That's the big question on everyone's lips. I mean, though, with the information that's already out there in the news sources, on all the news feeds, social media, and platforms as well, people say it's really obvious. But I mean, nobody really knows exactly what happened, apart from the phone call that happened between his coach slash manager slash PR assistant, Joshua Fabia, and the something Spence, a particular individual that the UFC's legal official Hunter, something. So I've not got his name off the top of my head at the moment. But Joshua Fabia, who is he? Because I think many people, including myself, are speculating that a lot of the downfall for Diego Sanchez, especially from the point of UFC 239, where he fought against Donald Cerrone, and also think around that time or after that fight, he fought against Mikel Pereira. Things started going downhill from then. People noticed it with his performance within the cage, and also there's also advice that his cornerman, who Joshua Fabia also plays that role as being his coach, manager, and PR for any sort of public relations, and also his cornerman within the UFC fights. People are saying, including myself, that something it was from that point really that things started to snowball downhill. Even though before that things were kind of somewhat on a decline for Diego Sanchez, but Joshua Fabia's presence in Diego Sanchez's life just basically acted as a catalyst in accelerating and speeding up that process of Diego Sanchez leaving the UFC. So Joshua Fabia, who is he? So from what I know, from the information I managed to research for making this podcast, he's a founder of an institute known as the School of Self-Awareness. It's based in Albuquerque in New Mexico in the United States. So the organization's main objective is to help people who want to be of service to the world, or to a better world, to help make a better world. Now, this does stem from teaching people or training people to have empathy, compassion, and self-love, and this can be done by utilizing this is what he believes, because it's his organization. He started it. The buck stops with him. This can be done by utilizing ancient wisdom with modern innovations. Now, on the company website, there is a few statements there where Fabia does claim that at the age of 9, his grandfather had a stroke, and it was at this point that he took on the role of being a physical therapist for his grandfather, helping him to recover from said stroke. Now, it also goes on to say that he claims to have experience in martial arts, but doesn't. But there's no evidence to actually support this claim that he's making. Now, the school, now this is the well, I call it an institution, probably not, but let me say it's a company, a business. The School of Self-Awareness offers classes based on breathing and movement, healing, and the SOS survival method, which uses Fabia's background in Systema. Um, Now, if I was to go into further detail into Fabia's background, it's that it stems from being an army ranger, and really a lot of what he does. If you think being an army ranger, that's much more closely associated with being in the army of any country, being a soldier basically, and that's much more geared towards surviving, under certain conditions. But overall, none of this is helpful to, or useful, or relevant even, to mixed martial arts. So, just getting a little bit of background on Joshua Fabia, because everybody knows who Diego Sanchez is, but the unknown entity, the unknown quantity here, it really is Joshua Fabia. And who is he? Because in many people's eyes, he's still more or less a nobody that just came into the scene and caused all this mayhem for Diego Sanchez, and for a lot of people that like and respect this guy, because he's done so much in the sport, but he's still a level-headed, likable guy. So the two guys met each other just as I said earlier, around the time that Diego fought Donald Cerrone at UFC 239. No, sorry, that was not. Big mistake. Please correct me, guys. No, sorry, guys, I need to correct myself. It was not Donald Cerrone. It was not Donald Cerrone at all. It was Michael Chiesa at the UFC 239. Before making this podcast, I just watched Mr. Cerrone's former fights, just to kind of like gauge the fight he's gonna have with Alex Morono, which would have been against Diego Sanchez. I was just trying to gauge and guess who's gonna win that fight. So that completely kind of mentally knocks me off guard, and I got the two names mixed up completely. No, UFC 239 against Michael Chiesa, and I watched that fight, and Diego Sanchez didn't look particularly good. He really didn't defend himself that well. I mean, okay, he defended himself, by keeping his guard up, his arms up. Excuse me, by keeping his guard up, but he didn't throw much strikes. He didn't throw much attacks towards his opponent, and I think and just not just that, but looking at him, his physical overall appearance didn't look to be in shape. He didn't look that great. Didn't look good at all in that fight. Excuse me. So yeah, it was around this time that they met. So Joshua Fabia became Diego's coach, and at the same time, around this time, Diego Sanchez quit and left the Jackson Wink Mixed Martial Arts Academy in the US. He stopped training there, and I think he cut off ties with his management, with his coaches at the Jackson Wink Academy, and all the PRP, and basically anyone who does work with him that probably is things such as his coaching, his health, medical insurance, whatever, just any sort of PR person between him and any outside activities he's doing outside his own private life, basically. And he placed that all of those responsibilities solely onto the shoulders of Joshua Fabia. So from here, I think with that said, Joshua Fabia took on the role of all of those things, and you can tell that basically for Diego Sanchez, that probably would have been a big mistake, because the biggest telltale sign that something was wrong with his coaching was really, really wrong with his coaching. Although before this point, I think many people will agree with me that mentally, Diego Sanchez's mental state of mind was really, really fragile even before this point. But this is where things really took a nasty turn. In this performance against Chiesa, as I explained to you just a moment ago, his performance in the cage there just wasn't that great. He wasn't defending himself. Even the takedowns and the ground. His performance just overall wasn't impressive at all, and his physique wasn't great. He didn't look like he was in shape. Didn't look fit at all. And I have to say that also the source of advice that Diego Sanchez was giving his giving him Diego Sanchez in between the rounds. This also advice that Joshua Fabia was giving Diego Sanchez was not what you would expect from a cornerman for a sport such as mixed martial arts. It was weird, quote unquote. What he said was, in this fight at UFC 239, whereby Sanchez fought against Chiesa, Fabia said to Sanchez in the 1 minute break, "I need that Tyson. I need these strikes." And this really did prove to be useless, because I've listened to other cornermen for other mixed martial arts fighters, and that what they say, this is not the source of advice they give to their athletes or to their students. Let me say, that the people who they've been coaching for this fight that they're competing in. That's not the source of advice that I've heard. It doesn't even come close. You do the cornermen, the coaches tell their I think what's the best word to describe the athletes, their students, that I can see that the opponent is basically he's getting tired. His strikes are looking sloppy. His kicks. Things such as that, and then they tell their athlete, they tell their student, now it's time to take an advantage, going for counter strikes, going for takedowns. Now there's an advantage there because your opponent is letting their guard down because they're tired, and that they're not their sharp self that like they were at the beginning of the fight. That sort of advice is not what I myself, and I still consider myself to be a novice mixed martial arts fan, that is not the source of advice that even I myself would expect to come out of the mouth of a cornerman for an athlete, at least in a sport such as mixed martial arts. That is not what I expect to hear. So that was really, really bizarre. Just the wording of what he said. It's like it had completely nothing to do with with mixed martial arts at all. Now, also, there's another example of that, where Diego fought Michael Pereira as I mentioned earlier before in the podcast, at UFC Fight Night 167, and he won this. So I think that night Sanchez probably got lucky, because while he was still grounded on the canvas on the floor, his knee was still on the ground. Pereira threw an illegal knee, and that resulted in a disqualification, and so the judges awarded the win to Sanchez. But again, the source of advice that Joshua Fabia was giving Sanchez in between the rounds during those 1-2 minute breaks, Joshua was giving some bizarre advice. In this case, he said, V drill, think of the shadow, and if it gets tight, get sticky and take it to the ground, get on top and give me some right time. I mean, what the hell does that even mean? That really it seems really, really bizarre. Really bizarre. Now, since teaming up with Joshua Fabia, another thing that I have to say that I noticed, that I saw in the research that I did, is that Diego Sanchez's social media almost became like a promotional platform for Joshua Fabia's business, for his School of Self-Awareness courses, and basically for his School of Self-Awareness company. They'll still, when I say promotional platform, I mean basically, you can use your common sense and come to the conclusion of what I mean, or use your imagination to understand what I mean. Basically, Sanchez will be posting just positive things about the organization on his social media, on his Instagram, on his Twitter, promoting the company, and it's things like this, and there's some other points I'm going to cover also, but things like this, but I'm going to cover other things also support this and also involve this as well. It's almost like Fabia was using Diego Sanchez to promote his company, and thereby, of course, promoting himself. Whereby, if you're this person's, although I appreciate that if the athlete is being coached by you, you're a coach, then, but no, the performance in the cage, if they're performing well in the cage, then the quality of your coaching is being, the performance in the cage will speak for itself, because if they're doing that well in the cage, unless if this person's training themselves, which is 99% most of the time very unlikely, someone that's coaching this mixed martial arts athlete, if your coaching is that good, the performance that will speak for itself in the cage. That your athlete, your student does well, and then people will say their coaching must be really, really good. Who is their coach? And then then that's when your name will start to reign. But again, moving on to other points, Diego, of course, I won't say of course, but Diego is also very defensive of Joshua when people point this sort of stuff out, that it's almost like Joshua Fabia is using Diego to promote Fabia and to put Fabia in the limelight. With everything that's been going on, it seems that Diego can't even make sense of what's going on. He can't really separate what should be happening to what actually is happening, that sort of thing. And it's like Fabia has taken from the research, again, quoting from the research that I've done, it does look like Fabia has taken over Sanchez's life in interviews and meetings. And what really prompted my interest in this whole story, this whole thing, what really brought my attention, the first thing that I saw, the first source of news or media source, the video that I came across on YouTube was the broadcast meeting. The broadcast team were having a meeting. This was it must have been back in September, October 2020, and that was for the UFC 253 event. And they've been speaking to Diego Sanchez, and just towards the end, it's all being recorded. Just towards the end, Joshua Fabia comes in and just starts saying some sort of nonsense, saying that basically Diego Sanchez has been shit on, basically been poo-pooed and shit on all over by the media, by the commentators, about how the commentators have been really disrespectful to him in the commentary during his fights, and especially the last fight that he had, and really it's something that shouldn't be happening. And a lot of the team there, which involves people like Paul Felder, a lot of the team that were there were basically saying in defense that if there's a problem, if there's an issue, and they themselves are also athletes that also compete in the sport, either that they're still actively competing or they have retired, but they still stay very close to the sport. They follow what happens in the world of mixed martial arts. They even said themselves that they also get a lot of that negative feedback also. But they said that and I was thinking in my mind that if Diego Sanchez is getting a lot of that negative feedback, if he feels that the commentary is being done very, very unfairly in such a way that it makes him look bad, then of course he can speak for himself. That is the main thing that did concern me in that video. Why is somebody else doing all the speaking for him? I mean, that was Joshua Fabia. A lot of the negative hatred, or in fact the commentary that he's complaining about, isn't being directed at Joshua Fabia. I mean, nobody even knows, no one in that room even really knew who Joshua Fabia is or was. They never met him. And, it did strike me as quite odd that if the negative feedback is not being aimed at you, then really the person who is being aimed at, they really should be able to speak for themselves, because they're the people who are going to be on the brunt, receiving the brunt of it, a loss of it, not you. They're going to be feeling more hurt than you. You're not going to be feeling anything at all, because none of it's been directed at you. So it's quite weird that really Diego Sanchez is there, and with all the time he's spent in the sport of mixed martial arts, not just within the UFC but even outside of the UFC, he should have at least enough experience, or at least come across these situations enough times in the past to know how to handle it. At least, again, to speak up for himself. He has a voice. People know who he is. They respect him. And that is likable. Sorry about that, guys. It was a brief interruption. So yeah, as I was saying before, this guy Diego Sanchez should be able to speak up for himself. He's been in this company long enough. He's been in this business for long enough to know how to handle these sorts of situations. Now, there was recently an interview that was done by the Sirius FM team with Anthony Smith, who's an active mixed martial arts fighter, and the other guy called RJ Clifford, and they did a brief video interview with Diego Sanchez. And one of the surprising things about that interview was that Diego Sanchez was by himself. I say surprising because many people, including myself, thought that he would be with the his, they thought he would be with Joshua Fabia, who would be the guy that was telling him what to do, what to do, when to do it, how to, basically just controlling him, And in the interview, I was just listening and just watching closely to Diego's responses to all the questions. They were saying how he was interacting and engaging with the two hosts, and he really did appear to be quite brainwashed. Many people have been asking and wondering, wondering why, basically the whole thing of how he was cut from the UFC, just what went wrong, even though they know that there was things were kind of heading in that direction already. But I mean, for someone who's done so much like himself, really he could have left in a far more amicable way and much more amicable terms. So one of the things he did say in the interview was that he did feel, that the UFC is going to kill me, and God, it was just mad. It was just crazy. He really did seem like he really just seemed like someone who does need a lot of help. He seemed mentally he's really unstable, and back to what I said about sounding too technical or going off on a tangent. He did seem very brainwashed, in the interview. But even then, when he said that the UFC had to kill him, my immediate thought was that, going back to other fighters and just all the other things that I've seen in the media and what I've seen in the news, I was thinking that, the UFC is notorious for how they treat their fighters badly. And then when I mentioned this to some of my friends who I do talk about the sport with a lot, they said to me, well, that isn't completely true, because the UFC, for the fight that he's supposed to have, that Diego Sanchez was supposed to have with Donald Cerrone, Diego Sanchez was still paid for all the winning, and was still paid for the fight, basically. I think that was about $211,000. So that's still close to $250,000. So in that case, he was really well looked after. So just how he is now, so erratic and just mentally unstable, and just looks so brainwashed, for many people, including myself, even though I've not really followed his career in the sport of mixed martial arts so closely. From what I've been hearing, from what I've been seeing, he seemed like a really, really likable guy, and someone who really didn't have many enemies within the sport, within the mixed martial arts community. And again, in that interview, he was so defensive of Joshua Fabia. But one thing I will say is that this could be one of those situations whereby Diego Sanchez is one of those people that's been going through a lot before in the past. Something else I'll cover here will be a lot of the things he's suffered before in the past. The alcohol and substance abuse, depression. I think when it comes to finances, he hasn't made the best choices. There was a friend who was supposed to look after the financial side of things for Diego Sanchez. I think his friend somehow $170,000 went missing from his account, or something like that. His friend cheated him out of a lot of money, stole from him basically. So I think, and of course there was the divorce that he was going through with his wife. And also don't forget he's also a father, so he has children. I think he has children or a child. I think he has a daughter. Well, I know he's a father. So all those things weighing on your shoulders, and when no one's trying to, in his words, trying to at least help you, at least sit down with you and just talk, just listen to you, even whereby you are at your worst, and maybe everybody turned their back on him, and Joshua Fabia was the only person who probably stood up and stepped up to the plate and said, I'll help you. No matter what happens, I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to assist you in whatever it is you need to do. And maybe that's what happened. And Diego Sanchez, potentially said, to hell with everybody else. You all turn your back on me, and this is the only person that actually cares about me throughout the whole wide world. So I'm going to trust him with everything, and potentially that's what could have happened, because I can see that everywhere on social media, on videos, in interviews, on YouTube, everywhere he has defended Joshua Fabia to the nth degree. So I'm assuming that's probably what happened, that he probably sees this guy as his brother, because he is the only person who has been there for him, whilst everybody else, supposedly, I'm assuming, has turned their back on him. So that's probably the reason why he's defending him the way he is. So, but I have to also say that this does seem to be like a developing story that's changing all the time. Of course, there's the actual, the reason as to, in the eyes of the UFC, the actual, let me say, the actual incident or the actual thing that actually prompted the whole releasing of Diego Sanchez from the UFC, and that is the phone call that Joshua Fabia made to the UFC. I'm assuming on the behalf of Diego Sanchez, and I think was sort of on behalf of Diego Sanchez, but I'm sure maybe Diego Sanchez didn't think it was, or let me word my sentence properly. It was probably done, but probably not in Diego Sanchez's best interest, because in that phone call, Joshua Fabia actually requested all of the medical documentation for Diego Sanchez, and the legal official for the UFC, who I can't remember their name, and I haven't made their name, put their name down here in my notes. What happened is that I think Diego Sanchez, or not Diego Sanchez, Joshua Fabia asking for all of the medical documentation for Diego Sanchez probably prompted the UFC to be suspicious and to be concerned that maybe something is wrong here, because why would he want all of his medical documentation? And they said, basically, the legal official said on behalf of the UFC, look, if something's wrong, basically you're saying, if something is wrong, then we will not, we'll have to pull this fight that he has between himself and Donald Cerrone that's coming up this coming weekend, which is today that I'm recording this podcast. It was also speculated that the reason why it was also speculated that the reason why Joshua Fabia was actually trying to get the medical documentation from the UFC was because he was trying to bring a lawsuit. He was trying to sue the UFC, basically trying to bring a lawsuit against the UFC because of Diego Sanchez's mental state of mind, that all of his erratic behavior has been caused because he's been punched in the head so many times and has been so punch drunk that all the injuries he sustained from fighting for so long in MMA within the UFC is down to that, basically. So I think they feel actually it's best we just let him go. But I mean, at the end of that phone call, it was said that the two of them could be heard laughing. So excuse me. It's well, it's just kind of strange and it's quite sad that the whole thing I was surprised myself after seeing the video of whereby him and Diego Sanchez and Joshua Fabia are confronting the broadcast team at UFC 253, and then suddenly you find he gets dropped like he does at this he gets dropped like he does by the UFC after making this just they said the phone call lasted 7 minutes, and just after that there were some exchanges via email, and then but just like that he was cut from the organization. It's just quite sad, and it is sad, and I emphasize that because he's had such a long career within the UFC. He's won more fights than he's lost. Of course, the issue of his mental health, but it would have been better if he had parted ways on far more amicable and happier terms than this. It's a really sad situation, it really is. And also another thing I want to point out is that as I'm making this podcast today, there's a video that was released of Joshua Fabia and Diego Sanchez training. And in this video, it was first of all brought to my attention by just I was listening to one of the news clips from one of the mixed martial arts MMA Focus, or one of the mixed martial arts YouTube news channels. And in that video, there's a clip of just a brief clip. I think the video runs for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but they never show the whole thing. And it was just crazy and even disturbing that Joshua Fabia has Diego Sanchez hung upside down, suspended by must be a cable or something upside down. And in that video, what's happening is that Joshua Fabia, whilst Diego Sanchez is hanging upside down, is punching his head. Joshua Fabia is punching Diego Sanchez's head And I think in the I read somewhere that the reason why this is being done is to strengthen the opponent, strengthen the athlete's body for, and just get it used to absorbing, just get it used to absorbing shots, and just the fact that you're being hit. You know, if you practice this sort of thing, your body will get used to it. And I saw that thing, and again, I count myself as a novice in the sport. It just looks so bizarre. It looks so weird, and that just did it for me today when I saw that. When I saw that video, just walking out the gym myself, and I saw that video on YouTube, I thought, this is complete. It's just, it is so bizarre. It's so weird. As what, even Aaron Hawani, someone who doesn't swear that much, even tweeted on Twitter, "What the fuck is this?" It was just so crazy. I've never seen anything like that before in mixed martial arts. You know, even again, as someone who's still learning so much about the sport, it just looks so bizarre, so very bizarre. I mean, I even said, I posted in my stories, I thought, this is just really, 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 you know, it's like torture. The fact that that Diego Sanchez is hanging upside down is bad enough because you're upside down. All of that blood is rushing to your head. And on top of that, um, Joshua Fabia is punching your head. You know, it doesn't make sense. Just what the hell is going on? So, you know, I really do think and I really do hope that, I don't know Joshua Fabia, but you know, his presence in Diego Sanchez's life has not helped Diego Sanchez at all. You know, in my personal opinion, it hasn't helped at all. You know, and you know, I do believe that Diego Sanchez has been brainwashed to the core. He is, you know, although I kind of contradict myself when I say that, in the sense that, you know, maybe Diego Sanchez at some point felt that everybody had turned their back on him, nobody cared about him. That maybe he felt that. Maybe he felt that Joshua Fabia was the only person who understood him. So that's the reason why he's defending him like he is. But you know, I really do hope that, you know, I hope that Diego Sanchez wakes up one day and realizes what's going on here and gets rid of Joshua Fabia. I mean, I don't hate Joshua Fabia or anything like that, but when it comes to mixed martial arts, he doesn't know what he's doing. And I can't stand someone who actually doesn't know what they're doing in a particular field, but they will never admit to it. You know, the whole thing does look like he doesn't know what he's doing, but he's latched onto Diego Sanchez's star power and his money and his fame, power, and you know, the fact that he's a well-known person, well-known sport, well-liked sport, and he's basically using that to his advantage. You know, that sort of thing. Because the more he's closely associated with Diego Sanchez, the more his business is promoted. People see that, and the more he's promoted as well. Even if it's in a negative way, people have even said, and I've seen this quoted in many places now, that the whole thing is like a cult. That Joshua Fabia is running a cult. So you know, again, it looks like a developing story because what I just mentioned about Sanchez being hung upside down whilst Fabia is punching him in the head, that just came out today, and this is Saturday, the 8th of May, 2021. So let's see what happens later on this evening, tomorrow morning, the Sunday morning. You know, let's just see what happens in the near future, because this does look like a developing story. People are trying to do a lot of research on the situation. People are looking into Sanchez's history, even though he's far more well known than Joshua Fabia. And they're also digging up Joshua Fabia's past as well, just to find out just what the hell is going on and how someone could have such a long, many successful career in mixed martial arts, especially the UFC, and just suddenly within an hour, with the help of a 7-minute phone call and a few emails, a few exchanges by email, have all of that flushed down the drain. You know, so yeah, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on it. God, I'm getting so tongue twisted here, so tongue tied. So on to the UFC Vegas 26. So two fights are interesting on this fight card. Amanda Ribas vs Angela Hill. So Amanda Ribas, she last fought at UFC 257 against Marina Rodriguez, her Brazilian counterpart. One means that they're both coming from the same country. She showed some good ground game. Of course, her opponent landed some really heavy shots, and her stand-up seemed pretty decent. But opponent Angela Hill, watching her fight when she last fought at UFC Vegas 21 against Ashley Yoder, she seemed, at least at the beginning of the fight, to be a much more patient and calculating sort of fighter, waiting for the right opportunity to strike to going to attack her opponent. Her ground game seems pretty decent. She's able to keep her opponent on the ground. But when she's close enough, when she's near enough within range, that's when she seems to land some really clean and heavy shots. So these two girls, I think, these two fighters, I think that Amanda Ribas will take the win out of the two. She seems just a lot more fiery and has more heart when it comes to delivering, a decent attack. Even though in her last fight against Marina Rodriguez she didn't win, but she seems to be that sort of fighter. Now for the co-main event, which is Donald Cerrone versus Alex Moreno, who replaced Diego Sanchez. I think it's going to be a hard one. Looking at Donald Cerrone's last fight against Nico Price at UFC Vegas 11, this fight I thought Nico Price would win, but actually resulted in a no contest and a draw, majority draw. Cerrone did look like he defended himself pretty well. Again, he seems to be the sort of patient and calculating type, and he seems to be able to move quite well to avoid shots. And his stand-up seemed pretty decent, but in this fight, Nico Price seems to be the better person. And his opponent, Alex Moreno, he looks. It was quite hard to find one of his really most recent fights, but his last fight against Chaos Williams, light on his feet, seems to be able to move pretty well. But he lost this fight because Chaos Williams quickly moved in there and just used an uppercut and just finished him with counter strikes and just brought Moreno down to the ground. But his other fight against was it Reese McKee at the UFC Vegas 14, he did seem to be able to land some really heavy shots. So Moreno and Cerrone seems to be evenly matched in terms of height and reach. So I think it's going to be a close one. So I'm not going to give my 2 cents. Well, if I had to, I would side with Moreno. He's young. He's what 30, 31. Cerrone, in terms of sports, is kind of reaching the retirement stage, and he just turned 38 just about a month ago. So so if you've still got it, you've still got it. So but for me, I'd say it's going to be close. But if I had to, if I was a betting person, if I had to put my money down on someone, I'd probably go for Moreno because he's the younger of the two, and the younger of the two probably will be able to recover much more quickly than the other guy. But let's wait and see what happens. I always say let's wait and see what happens because this is a sport whereby you can make a prediction and anything can happen in the octagon. Anything can happen. So lastly, I want to talk about and I hate talking about this guy. I absolutely hate saying his name, Jake Paul. That I said it. So I can understand if many people or some people who watched or listened to this to this extent in my podcast, thank you. And if you have, for the fact that I just mentioned that guy's name, if you just clicked off or just stopped listening, I'm sorry. But it's what happened at the last press conference for Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather. So, what happens? Mayweather was there, Jake Paul was there, Logan Paul was there. Jake Paul did his thing, and he just does it for attention. They were squaring up to each other, and Floyd Mayweather was saying, let's do it. Let's make this what happen. Get a contract for this bum or whatever agreement for this bum, referring to Jake Paul. And then Jake Paul just grabs Mayweather's head, said, "Got your hat," just turned and just walks away. And then Floyd Mayweather wasn't going to have that, and went after him. And I think he managed to land some decent shots. I think he hit Jake Paul in the eye. Jake Paul got a black eye, and I think he also hit Jake Paul in the mouth. So for me, if they were going to fight, that is a fight that I would love to see. It's a fight that I would love to see because I think two things would happen. Jake Paul would accept the fight, and maybe just to build up the hype to it, and of course just to look good. Because in my eyes, this is someone who cares so much about his image. His image is all he has. He'll accept the fight. And then probably when it gets up to fight night, fight day, he'll just pull out for one excuse or the other. Or what's the other?
what's the other reason I was about to give? Just completely slipped my mind now. Yeah, he'll accept the fight, or I'm gonna see. He'll accept the fight, or he will turn the fight down, and he'll probably give an excuse that he doesn't want to fight Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather's too small, because Floyd Mayweather is not the tallest person. You know, when I saw him for the first time, as in just his height, when I was standing within his circle of bodyguards, he didn't look tall at all. I think about 5'1" or 2. But I mean, in a fight, height doesn't mean that much at all. It's how well you can fight, how well you can use what you have in your arsenal. So if this fight does happen, I would love to see it, because like many other people, like, including myself, I would love to see Jake Paul get knocked out and embarrassed. And for someone like him to get knocked out and embarrassed, I think, he's a sort of person that would never live it down, and he'll basically stop his involvement in combat sports completely, and that'll be the end of Jake Paul. And people's opinion of him will change completely. So, guys, I'm going to round off here. I'm going to wrap this up here. So sorry for my tongue twisting and having to repeat words and stuff all the time. I just have so much to say. I try to organize myself to say it properly. Sometimes it doesn't come out right. And I'm really sorry about the break that I had in between there. If you did enjoy the podcast, please do leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe. You can also listen to my podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on Google Podcasts. And I think slowly but gradually, it's being shared on other platforms as well. I have seen one of my videos being embedded on on another website or so, but I saw my video being shared elsewhere. That wasn't me that did it. So I know my content is being shared to other areas of the internet. So once again, guys, thanks.